Hello, Advanced Knife Bros. We're gonna try out a new video here. Okay, we're gonna call this one the Benchmades I've kept, borrowed, and sold. Of course, I still may change the title of the video once I think about it a little bit, but it's generally speaking that's what it's gonna be about. Now, if you're wondering where I've been, I'm not, I'm not dead, just dead inside. As always, though, it's not like a status update. I haven't just started feeling dead inside. That's just my normal uh, state of being. So let's try out this new series here. This is the first of how many ever. We're going to do something that gets the clicks. We're going to go Benchmade. Benchmade definitely gets the juices flowing in the knife world. I'm sure someone's going to ask me if I've seen or know about the narrows and about its price. But guys, can you really put a price on a knife that narrow? I paid $900 easily for one of those. Now, first up, sold. Which ones ultimately didn't jive with me? And why not? Starting with the Benchmade 765 Mini Titanium Monolock. Now, this may have been my first knife with M390, and little did I know how gray titanium in M390, like that's the style and the configuration that has become the popular one. I don't think anybody knew that back then. What is this, 2018, 2016? I don't even remember. Knife guys are going to say, oh, I've got a type, and it's going to be a gray titanium and M390 knife, and they're going to have 50 of them. It's just awesome, you know? Now, I sold this knife because while it looked dope, it had a little spiny part on the lock bar, and I needed some money for another knife, which is the story of knife collecting. Now, occasionally, I think I maybe shouldn't have sold it, but I really did need to. I needed the money. Now, I don't really know what these go for nowadays since they've been discontinued. Okay, we're looking at 200 to 300. Anyway, that's fun. No regrets. Feel like I sold this to pay for part of the deadlock, which is going to be the theme here. I think it sold for about 150, 160, somewhere around there. Next, the 320 Precinct. Now, this one was okayish. I had some lock stick, if I remember correctly. It was kind of boring. I don't know what else is there to say about a black G10 flipper. These are discontinued, and it looks like they go for 110 up on eBay. I think I sold it for $60, which seems fair to the owner. No regrets there either. Now the Benchmade 940 1704. Now this is a variant of the 940 pattern. This one was a Going Gear exclusive. I used to do stuff with them. Remember that? This was given to me because it was an exclusive to them, and I was going to make a video about it. And I wound up giving it to my brother. I believe some of the inlays fell out, and he replaced the inlay with something else. He's that sort of guy. I already had the 941. This one weighs almost the same. No need to have two models of the same knife. The red honeycomb, not really my look. Right, knife people never have two of the same knife in a different style. Like, G10, 6 different colors, or the same color of G10 and 5 different steels. Right, knife collectors? All right, how about the Nimravus? Nimravus. I did this video back in 2016. My brother bought this one when he worked at an outdoor store. My brother figures into a lot of these stories here, Benchmades. He loaned it to me because he knows about my weird YouTube channel, and this was pretty good. Recently got a comment on an old video, on this video, like just a few days ago, about how some guy broke a tip on his. Shame I didn't break the tip on this one. Pretty good knife, not as good as that anecdote though, but still good. It's not a massive fixed blade, and I gotta look to see if they make these. Nope, they don't. Blade HQ has a discontinued label on their listing, which is good enough for the research department here. These came in half serrated, even tanto, to appeal to those sorts of people. You know the ones. My brother's a decent guy though. He knows you can get by just fine with a plain edge drop point, which is the configuration seen here. Now, what about the mini grip? The mini Griptilian, is that the 555? No, hold on. Let me Google it really quick. Oh, okay, I think it's a 556. All Benchmades have a name and then the number that goes with them. You can just look up the number on the blade. It tells you what Benchmade you're holding in your hand you found somewhere that has been discontinued, pawn shop. But you have the tools you need. You can figure it out if it's not even the 556. Who cares? So the mini grip was fine, but I feel the same way about it as I did with the Delica, the Spyderco Delica. It's a little too small for my preference, and I already had a bigger version called the full-size Griptilian. So the mini grip was fine, but so I keep it, as I often prefer to carry a 3 to 4 inch pocket knife, blade size, or a traditional when I want something smaller, non-locking, like say the stump lifter. And just as an update, we're working on a new model, the stump fish, but the stump lifters probably won't be coming back for some time. They were popular and they sold out within a few weeks, but I feel like it's got to sell out within a few hours if you're going to do another run that quick. So hopefully you enjoy yours and you like it while you had it, okay? Anyway, I sold this really cheap, or I traded it. I don't remember. It was a while back, and I hope whoever has it now is enjoying it, has not committed a crime with it. Now, finally, the Mini Crooked River. Or is it finally? Are we already at finally on the... No, I don't think so. Okay, it may have said one point, this was my favorite Benchmade. But then I realized while it was good, the full size was the original, and I liked it a lot. So, you know, I had smaller other knives, and maybe it was sort of disrespectful to the full size, which is just a wonderful knife. Anyway, sold it. But if you do like the smaller version of it, then maybe it's right for you. I don't think there's a right or wrong answer here. It's a good knife. It just didn't make sense for me to keep both when I needed money to pay for the deadlock. And finally, after my last finally, chronologically, wait, is it the last? I'm winging it here, folks. The Bugout. Now, I think this one was also sold, you know, to fund the deadlock, or maybe it was the Sharp by Design Void XL. Those are my two big knife purchases over time. I think overall this is my most popular Benchmade video, and it was and it continues to be a very popular pocket knife. But it's also a knife hated by people, and they're going to show up in the comments where I'm pounding through wood and say it's cheap and it's not up to hard use and it's soy or it's a millennial knife or, you know, whatever. You could buy a gun for that. You know the sort of guys that show up under the videos. You see them down there. Now, there's nothing wrong with this pocket knife, but it's a little soulless, as to speak as embarrassingly as I can about a fucking pocket knife. Now, it's FRN or GFN. It is a durable handle material, but still overall seems like, you know, it's an injected molded plastic. There's nothing, you know, it's not exciting. I've had metal and aluminum break before I've ever split the high impact plastics that Spyderco or Benchmade use in handles. I trust it, and just because the material flexes doesn't mean shit about how brittle it is or isn't. It flexes doesn't mean it's brittle, okay? Those are two different things. I don't think people understand that. You know, skyscrapers will sway in the wind, tree branches sway, things sometimes are supposed to flex, and it is not an indication of its durability. Now, anecdotally speaking, Benchmade handle polymers have never let me down. Now, that said, I've also never had an Omega spring break, so maybe I'm doing something right. And those do snap. I know, I feel like people talk about that a lot in the videos. Anyway, I believe the Birdshots bought this knife off me for over asking price, and that was really kind of them. They're good people. And the prices on these sort of soulless knives have increased over the years. And in my head, since this knife is about the same as a Griptilian or a mini Griptilian in terms of technology, size, and materials, it really shouldn't cost more than those. But it does because it's like a little bit of a hype knife. You know, price creep has infected the knife community's biggest brands. And Benchmade is just one of the many offenders. Even before inflation hit, they were still creeping up by quite a bit. And you can see this for yourself. There's a little tip here. You can go to Blade HQ's site and find an old knife, a discontinued knife, or a popular knife that has been in production for years. You're going to take that link over to the Wayback Machine because they never delete old product listings. And you can see how price creep has increased throughout the years. Again, this just isn't a Benchmade, this isn't a Blade HQ thing. It's just that Blade HQ is a good website to check this out on because Blade HQ, you know, they stay in line with most knife retailers. A lot of knife companies use manufactured advertised pricing, so the price is, you know, it'll fluctuate between 10 or 20 bucks across brands, but, you know, overall, they're pretty competitive. All right, oh man, I forgot. The Mini Boost and the Freek, I almost forgot these. I totally forgot I ever did videos on these pocket knives, and you probably forgot that I did them too. Or maybe you're just showing up to the channel for the first time, and you're halfway through this video, you kind of hate me, I get it. But anyway, the Freek is kind of like a Griptilian knife. It's just got some rubber and some overlay shit. You know, capitalism depends on growth, so Benchmade needs to introduce new knives. And this is one they made just to release a new model and fill a spot in a catalog. And, you know, there's social media posts, look at the new Benchmade models. And everybody gets mad about how they cut up guns at one time. Now, if you like the Freek better than the Griptilian, you know, that's wonderful. I don't remember much about it. Looks like there's an extra groove in the handle, and it is still in production, so I guess it's not that bad. I mean, it's not like the knife was bad. It's just a forgettable knife in a long line of knives. Like the mini boost here, which is another Griptilian adjacent knife, but it's assisted. Now, you know, assisted knives are like the Kershaws. You know, that's their bread and butter knife, and Benchmade also has them too. Now, functionally speaking, they're like autos. I mean, not like the cool kind of autos like out the fronts, but the inconvenient kind, like the ones that flick out all cool, but are harder to close because of spring resistance. You know, I mean, harder to close one-handed. They're not hard to close, but it's just like that. If you have a Benchmade axis lock, you can flick it out and flick it back with ease. If you have one of their assisteds and you flick it out at about the same speed, and then you have to close it, it's a little bit harder to close. And really, like, what's the fucking point, okay, of an assisted knife? It's not, again, it's not Benchmade. It's just assisted knives in general. Now, my favorite autos have always been out the fronts. I love out the fronts. They're like one of my all-time favorite style of knives. And an assisted or an out the side auto, what do they call them? Single action. Some out the sides can be double action because you can thumb stud and you can also hit the button. Or is that dual action? I never remember. One dual action and double action are different. One refers to an out the front and one refers to an out the side. I'm sure the pedantic knife bros are going to show up in the comments and tell you the difference between a double and a dual, and that's their job. That's not mine. But let's just call them out the side autos, where you hit a button or you flick it and they open pretty quick. An out the side auto has to be real special for me to give a shit, like the Mud. I really have to love the design. This is not that style knife. Now, if you're looking at the blandness of the boost here, which, spoiler alert, are discontinued, then you may also be aware Boost is the name of a drink that's kind of like Ensure, and old people drink it. Now, are we done here? Now, you can watch the videos of these if I was a little too flippant in my post-mortem assessment of the pocket knives here. I think I traded the Freek, which was gifted to me, and the mini boost was a loaner from Josh, Journey Wind Junk. You remember him? I still talk to him. You know, he's a good guy. There's a little small community of us knife people that talk regularly, and he's part of that. Okay, so the ones I've kept, which is still sitting in the collection, mostly unused, of course. All these can be considered. I use them sometimes. You know, I have really too many knives just sitting here, occasionally cutting stuff. It's not a commentary on the knife. You know, whatever's closest, whatever's nearby. Let me rank these, though. We're going to do a ranking here by my least to my most favorite within the brand. Now, it's important to understand I don't hate these knives. I kind of like them. And now that I'm saying this, you'd be like, why would you even say you hate them when you don't? Why have you been talking about that? Now, the answer is I often don't have control over the things that I say. They just pour out. Even if this is scripted, I write these like I would talk them. You know, my I don't hate Benchmade knife shirt is raising a lot of questions already answered by my shirt. Now, first, which would be the last technically, remember technical is the best kind of correct. My least of the favorites, the Pagan. It ain't the Infidel, but they already named a knife that, and you can't call it the Infidel 2 because it confuses tactical Kevlar beard guys. Infidel. This is one of my least favorite out the fronts, and I am not sure why I bought it other than so I could have keyword hits for Benchmade and out the front on my channel. This is a long time ago. Not that long ago. 5 years? 4 years? Pagans, too, as a rule, are generally not very tactical. They're naked in the woods, dancing around fires, I think. Hopefully I'm not insulting your religion here. And, you know, Pagans probably wouldn't like this knife anyway. It's fine, but I do not like the chisel grind for sharpening. It's just a terrible grind and out the front. You're going to wind up scratching it while you're sharpening it. Do you do one swipe on the flat side and then 4 to 5 passes on the non-flat side? I've never figured out that formula, and I don't want anyone to explain it in the comments. Like what angle do you set the flat side for which angle do you set the other one? You can't set it at a full 90 degrees on the flat side, right? Because then you'd scratch the blade. There's just a lot of questions here that I'm sure are easily answered by a 40-minute freehand sharpening video on chisel grinds, and I can't do that to myself, all right? Then there's this 575, or the Mini Presidio II, also discontinued, and presumably, as the name implies, an improvement over the Presidio I, the past model. My brother gave this one to me. He found it at the river, not in the river, noting its condition. It's not rusty. Maybe it was the Buffalo River or the White River, somewhere in northern Arkansas. I forget that I have this one. He gave it to me because he doesn't really need it. He probably looks at it and he's got, this is kind of a boring pocket knife. Maybe the former owner forgot that he had it too, which is why they left it at the river and they weren't, you know, maybe it's partially serrated, so maybe that's it. He just didn't want to go back looking for it because it would have been like a 20-minute drive, and you know, he just wanted a new pocket knife anyway. It's a bit smaller than the Griptilian and it's kind of light. Now, product listing here says aluminum scales, and that seems right. I was like touching it, I'm like, is this plastic? Is this? It's not carbon fiber. It's aluminum. It tricked me. They have a slight. They don't have a plastic feel, but they just, you know, it could be another material too. It's a bit boring, but I guess they needed a new model for that year. They needed the Presidio 1. Can we make a Presidio 2, everybody? How does that sound? This is a Benchmade here that doesn't have a full review on the channel already, and even if it did have one, you weren't going to watch it anyway, or you'd forgotten that I made it. Next, the Griptilian. Now, I've beat the crap out of this one over the years. I've sharpened it an amount of times. I don't remember how many, and it's pretty good. The grip in the name means that it's got some handle bumps. That's why it's called the Griptilian. You know, presumably the name implies it has grip. Griptilian. Now the jimping is for friction, so when I've done some dumb stuff with these over the years for B-roll in my videos, you know, it hurts a little banging it through a log, as one might imagine it would. Is it more the fault of the reviewer than the pocket knife? Probably. I feel like there probably should be a few less bumps on there. I don't think a knife needs that much texture. Handle is not quite as smooth as my brain is. The lock is extremely broken in, and it's super fidgety. It's a good knife, and maybe the only one you'd ever need. You just bought this, you know, you like the knife, stop buying pocket knives. Go outside, stop watching YouTube videos, because it's a dark, hopeless path. Next, the Proper. Now, normally this would rank below the Griptilian, but super awesome slip joint maker Sean Yaw cut a new spring for it and replaced the mushy spring from the original, and he redid it. He also said the tang needed work too, so there are problems with the design of the tang and the way the spring interacts with it. But now it has a crisp pull and snap and is perfect. It's a little bit of a harder pull like I like on these. Now the original's backspacer was just mushy on mine. And I heard from others that the range for these is kind of like a 5-day-old watermelon to Red Delicious on the crispness scale that I just made up. They're never that good, it seems. Just soggy and mealy, and I'm glad Sean knew what to do to fix it. Otherwise, it's an okay knife, but it's maybe a starter slip joint and certainly not up to the Great Eastern Cutlery and fit and finish and USA made for the price. These were like $120, and you could get a Great Eastern Cutlery at the time for like $60, and I know it didn't have S30V, but who cares? A carbon steel and a slip joint, like the best ones out there are Great Eastern Cutleries if you can find them. They're hard to get still. There is a full video about this one for all those that like more detail, more talking. Next up, the Crooked River. Now this knife looks bad as hell, which is something I may have said in the 80s after watching MTV, you know, while your parents smoke cigarettes. Getting a little nostalgic here. Now, they didn't have dope modern hunting folding tactical knives like this back then. So that's one thing that's better than secondhand smoke. This one has S30V, stabilized wood handles, aluminum, or is that titanium bolsters? I don't really care. It's gray and it's cool, and there's an orange pivot collar and an orange backspacer. I think there's some different variations on the color schemes out there. Now, back in the 1980s, a $250 mostly made by machine folding knife was just a glimmer in Benchmade's eyes. Anyway, the weird thing that I don't love about this one is it's kind of awkward in the hand. Maybe it needs more grip, maybe it needs more bumps like the Griptilian, maybe I was wrong. But I've dropped this knife a few times, flicking it open and close. It just doesn't, it moves around in the hand when you're kind of fidgeting with it, and sometimes you're gonna drop it. Now I know this is a hunting knife, it's in their hunting series, so it has to be used for hunting, right? But in my hunting days, I would have opted for a game knife with less grooves and sans lock. But if you like the experience of cleaning animal goo out of your folding pocket knife that costs $300 out of the nooks and crannies, maybe you don't mind. Is there a better looking Benchmade than this?
Yeah, the Buck 110.
Alright, second to last, the 941. It's probably the smoothest access lock here other than the Griptilian. It's just nice and broken in right out of the package. Very light, an absolute classic, love its looks. It had S90V, you know, when it was less common. And I even had a Gonzo at one point that looked similar to this. That's how much I loved it. I bought a clone. Actually, somebody sent me a clone for free. Somebody sent me a free $10 knife to do a video on. Was that Wallbuys, or I don't even remember who it was. It wasn't Gonzo directly. I knew a guy who purchased this for me at a discount, and I paid $160 for it at the time. Now I think these retail for $260 or so. I don't know what they cost now. I mean, $260 is a lot for this pocket knife. I'm gonna give you that. I think I'd have a hard time paying full retail for it. Now, in my head, comfortably, a Benchmade to me is worth between $90 and $210. I think the $90 for the Griptilian is what they used to cost, was pretty fair. You know, there's too many brands out there now, and I was spoiled for years for paying under $150 for USA-made Great Eastern cutlery knives. Benchmade fit and finish can vary, but actually this one was probably one of the best I've ever held, so maybe they spend more time on the 941s. No complaints here other than the full retail price. I'll probably keep this one, probably forever, maybe. Now finally, my favorite, the Fact. Not favorite by a lot, as all the knives in the ones I've kept are pretty good. Freaking good, spelled with 2 E's. Now, the past few years, the knife industry has gotten overwhelming, and there are too many pocket knives at this point, which is why I released the Stump Lifter. I felt like I needed to contribute to the bullshit. Why not another pocket knife? That's why I've decided to move forward with the next one. I currently have the late stage knife collecting brain, so my collection isn't really growing a lot anymore. I don't know where this channel's heading other than making content, maybe to help out new collectors or just entertain the people that don't have a soul anymore like me. As there is still, quite a bit of stuff to talk about. But I said I loved the Fact back then, and I still like it today. I love that it's kind of a stiletto-inspired knife, low profile, grippy, aluminum scales, fairly lightweight with a thin, pointy blade. Now, I can't explain why I like it other than it just looks cool and it's pocketable. Low weight to blade length ratio. And looking at Blade HQ's website right now, it is discontinued. So I guess my taste is shit, and I don't really know anything about what knives are going to work and what knives are going to not work. A Benchmade for a couple of months liked me and sent me this and the mini Griptilian to do videos on. And then after I released this video, they never spoke to me again. I was like, hey guys, how's the video? And they left me on red. And that was whenever I released this video, 2018, which is fine. I wouldn't like me either if I were Benchmade. I don't have that cool, like, meat crafter influencer vibe like those other guys do. But that about wraps it up. I'm sure this video will do pretty well by the low standards I've come to expect lately for video performance. Benchmade is one of those companies people love to post under social media about how they don't like them, but they are still a popular pocket knife. And we get the price is outrageous, and the guys that are like, do you know they cut up guns that one time? Yeah, I know all that stuff. However, what I don't understand about the cutting up guns thing is what people thought would have eventually happened to the guns used in crimes that were confiscated by law enforcement. Like, if Benchmade didn't help destroy them, somebody else would have, right? Or law enforcement would have. Like, do you think they would have gone to good homes in the community? Like, oh yeah, this one was used to kill 6 people in a home invasion, but she's safe with me now. Anyway, on that note, make sure you say hi to the patrons who have put up with my minor sabbatical as of late from YouTube. I've been doing a lot of photography and just, connecting with family and friends. Been busy at work. Just got a lot of stuff going on. I am around, and I will be working on more videos and a new knife. We're working on the Stumpfish just to add to the piles of knives you already have. So you can find article versions now of my videos on Knife Informer. Do you know I'm over there? They take the text from my videos, and then I rewrite them and I update them. And if you can't stand the sound of my voice, it's a perfect way to consume the content that I make. So subscribe, comment. Thanks for watching.